Denial of the Holodomor. Denial of the Holodomor, Ukrainian, Zaperesena Golodomoru, Russian, Otrokani Golodomora, is the false claim that the 1932–1933 Holodomor, a large-scale, man-made famine in Soviet Ukraine, did not occur, or diminishing the scale and significance of the famine. Officially, the Soviet Union denied the famine and suppressed information about it from its very beginning until the 1980s. This was also circulated by some Western journalists and intellectuals. It was echoed at the time of the famine by some prominent Western journalists, including the New York Times' Walter Duranty. Soviet Union. Cover-up of the famine. The Soviet leadership undertook extensive efforts to prevent the spread of any information about the famine by keeping state communications top secret and taking other measures to prevent word of the famine from spreading. When Ukrainian peasants traveled north to Russia seeking bread, Joseph Stalin and Vyacheslav Molotov sent a secret telegram to the party and provincial police chiefs with instructions to turn them back, alleging Polish agents were attempting to create a famine scare. OGPU chairman Genrikh Yagoda subsequently reported that over 200,000 peasants had been turned back. Stanislav Kosior sent a telegram to the Politburo assuring that there was no major famine in the Ukrainian SSR. Joseph Stalin began to receive reports of Kosioir's deception and urged the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Ukraine to take appropriate measures to prevent a crop failure. An excerpt from the protocol number of the meeting of the Political Bureau of the Central Committee of the All-Union Communist Party Bolsheviks regarding measures to prevent failure to sow in Ukraine, March 16, 1932, shows Stalin's fear that the severity of the famine had been understated. Saying, the Political Bureau believes that shortage of seed grain in Ukraine is many times worse than what was described in Comrade Kosior's telegram, therefore. The Political Bureau recommends the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Ukraine to take all measures within its reach to prevent the threat of failing to sow field crops in Ukraine. Signed, Secretary of the Central Committee, J. Stalin. Soviet head of state Mikhail Kalinin responded to Western offers of food by telling of political cheats who offer to help the starving Ukraine, and commented, only the most decadent classes are capable of producing such cynical elements. In an interview with Gareth Jones in March 1933, Soviet Foreign Minister Maxim Litvinov stated, well, there is no famine, and went on to say, you must take a longer view. The present hunger is temporary. In writing books you must have a longer view. It would be difficult to describe it as hunger. Denial outside the Soviet Union. Walter Duranty. According to Patrick Wright, 28 Robert C. Tucker, 29, Eugene Lyons, Mona Charan, and Thomas Woods. One of the first Western Holodomor deniers was Walter Duranty, who won the 1932 Pulitzer Prize in Journalism, in the category of correspondence, for his dispatches on Soviet Union and the working out of the five-year plan. 33. In 1932, he wrote in the pages of the New York Times that any report of a famine in Russia is today an exaggeration or malignant propaganda. He said that while there was a bad harvest, and consequent food shortages, it did not rise to the level of a famine, and that there is no actual starvation or deaths from starvation. But there is widespread mortality from diseases due to malnutrition. Some have disputed the validity of his distinction between death from starvation and death from disease that is exacerbated by malnutrition. In his reports, Duranty downplayed the impact of food shortages in Ukraine. As Duranty wrote in a dispatch from Moscow in March 1933, these conditions are bad, but there is no famine and, but to put it brutally, you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. Duranty also wrote denunciations of those who wrote about the famine, accusing them of being reactionaries and anti-Bolshevik propagandists. In August 1933, Cardinal Theodor Initzer of Vienna called for relief efforts, stating that the Ukrainian famine was claiming lives, likely, numbered, by the millions, and driving those still alive to infanticide and cannibalism. The New York Times, the 20th of August 1933, reported Initzer's charge and published an official Soviet denial, "In the Soviet Union we have neither cannibals nor cardinals." The next day, the Times added Duranty's own denial. Modern politics. The issue of the Holodomor has been a point of contention between Russia and Ukraine, as well as within Ukrainian politics. According to opinion polls, Russia has experienced an increase in pro-Stalin sentiments since the year 2000, 51, with over half viewing Stalin favorably in 2015. Since independence, Ukrainian governments have passed a number of laws dealing with the Holodomor and the Soviet past. The most recent is the Decommunization Laws of 2015, which criminalize pro-communist speech and symbols, and ban denial of the famine or of its nature as a genocide, with a punishment of 2 years in prison. The Russian government does not recognize the famine as an act of genocide against Ukrainians, viewing it rather as a tragedy that affected the Soviet Union as a whole. A 2008 letter from Russian President Dmitry Medvedev to Ukrainian President Viktor Yushchenko asserted that the tragic events of the 1930s are being used in Ukraine in order to achieve instantaneous and conformist political goals. In November 2010, a leaked confidential U.S. diplomatic cable revealed that Russia had allegedly pressured its neighbors not to support the designation of the Holodomor as a genocide at the United Nations. According to another leaked document, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov described Israel's recognition of the Holodomor as historical revisionism.